2nd, 2024, the state in the case of New Jersey versus Christopher Greger called its last witness. Dr. Feingold is a pediatric infectious disease specialist, and the primary goal of that testimony was for the state to show that Corey's death was not the cause of a disease. Since the defense is going to call Dr. Bonin and have him testify that Corey died of natural causes like pneumonia or sepsis. Hello, my name is Deborah Lelli, and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on all upcoming videos. Let's get started. The state began the direct examination of Dr. Feingold by going through her CV. The reasoning for that was to qualify her as an expert witness. Dr. Feingold testified that based on all the documents that she reviewed, there was nothing available showing any type of infection.
Did you review it as part of those over 100 documents, police reports and statements and transcripts?
Absolutely.
And photographs?
Everything that was available to me.
Now, after you reviewed all of that material, did you render an opinion with respect to whether Corey died as a result of some infectious process?
I did.
What was your opinion?
My opinion was that there was nothing available in all the discovery and the medical records that were consistent with infection causing Corey's death or even playing a role in it.
When you say nothing available, it didn't exist?
I didn't see anything that suggested infection.
And is that opinion to a medical degree of certainty?
Absolutely.
The prosecutor then goes on and asks her about the Jersey Shore records and whether there was anything important about those records in the doctor formulating her opinion.
To you in regard to formulating your opinion, or what did that mean to you, the Jersey Shore records?
Right. Well, the concern is that typically children develop pneumonia following a respiratory viral infection. That the virus sets them up to get a bacteria into the lungs that can cause infection. And at this juncture, not only was he afebrile, looking completely well, he had no evidence of typical respiratory virus. Now, they didn't test for all of them that are possible, but the big four that we worry about were ruled out at this visit.
Now, taken together, what, if any, significance did you assign then to those three medical evaluations that Corey had, the two that occurred on April 1st and the one that started in the late hours on April 2nd and ended in the early morning hours, in the late hours of April 1st and ended in the early morning hours of April 2nd?
So just, reviewing this history, that this child was seen 3 separate occasions by 3 physicians, and nobody felt that he had any sign of infection and that there was anything wrong other than the bruising. And so at this point, when he leaves the Jersey Shore Medical Center at, I think it was 1 a.m. on the 2nd, he's a well-appearing child from an infectious disease point of view. He has no evidence of having an infection.
The prosecutor also asked the doctor questions about pneumonia, and the doctor answers those questions. She talks about why she would rule it out.
It frequently complicates respiratory illness, in particular influenza. But the typical clinical course is a child who's had some febrile illness, presumably some virus, and then has higher fever, develops more respiratory distress, trouble breathing, really over days becomes quite ill. And generally, when we see kids with Staph aureus pneumonia, they have gross abnormalities on their chest x-ray, but they also have very abnormal exams when you listen to them. There's areas where there's no, you don't hear any breath sounds because the pneumonia has filled that space where you're listening with your stethoscope. The other thing that's very common with Staph aureus pneumonia is to have what's called an empyema, which is a collection of pus between the lung and the chest wall. So we often have to, stick a tube in there to drain all that pus so that the lung can expand. We often have to put chemicals in there that break up all the adhesions because, it's pus and it's very thick and hard to suck out. So this is usually a clinical disease that starts and then over days and maybe even as much as a week will get worse and worse until the child comes to medical attention. And when they show up, they have high fever, they have abnormal lung exams, they're having trouble breathing, they have stopped eating, they're quite ill, but it's and that's really what how we generally see this disease progress.
And Corey didn't have any of those things.
Had none of those things.
And you yourself have actually treated children that find themselves with Staph aureus pneumonia.
Absolutely.
The prosecutor then asks the doctor questions about sepsis, and again, the doctor concludes that Corey could not have passed away due to sepsis.
None of those findings were described in the pathologist's evaluation, and there was the clinical story, the course just doesn't make sense for infection. You get seen 3 times right up to the very end, and nobody thinks you're sick. And then you come in and you're pre-morbid. That's not how Staph aureus infection acts. That's not what, and I've been taking care of children for 40 years, and the last 30 as an infectious disease doctor. I see every case of Staph aureus pneumonia that we see in the pediatrics department, and nobody presents like this. Kids don't come in and die from Staph aureus sepsis without some prologue and some leading up to it and being sick before they become so ill that they need help to manage their sepsis. And the lungs show tissue destruction, necrotic lung, purulent collections.
So in sum, Dr. Feingold, what, if any, conclusions did you reach whether an infection caused or contributed to Corey's death?
My conclusion was that there was no evidence that Corey had an infectious disease at any point, and certainly that was not his cause of death.
So when it is the defense attorney's turn to start his questioning, the questioning is not very long, but right from the beginning, the state begins to object. There is an objection with the first question. There is a lot of sidebars throughout the cross-examination. The defense attorney points out that this is the first time that the doctor is testifying in open court. The defense attorney also points out that it's been years since the doctor has actually done CPR on a child. So I will just show you a couple parts from the defense attorney's line of questioning. Here's the very first objection.
Thank you, Judge. How are you, Doctor?
I'm all right.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
I'm all right.
All right. So why do we have forensic pathologists?
Objection, Judge. Is it a quiz?
No, it's a question. Why do we have forensic pathologists?
Sarcastic, Judge.
I mean, if you're telling me
Your Honor, I just wanted to hear Your Honor's ruling on my objection.
Well, it's somewhat argumentative, I suppose, but you can answer her understanding of that if you want. You start asking another question. So you were drawing that question.
I'll withdraw that question. So forensic pathologists took blood cultures, and you said that they're not reliable. forensic pathologist took a CAT scan, you said that's not reliable, right?
I disagree with your first statement. Forensics pathologists don't take blood cultures. Physicians treating patients
Okay,
take blood cultures
okay.
when they present, or when they're in the hospital.
But you disagreed with some of the things that Dr. Odassa did, right? You said they were of no value.
I disagreed with a post-mortem lung culture.
Okay. You said it's of no value,
Right.
and the CAT scan of no value.
My understanding was that the CAT scan was ordered by someone else, but I might be wrong about that.
Okay.
But yes, that it's not interpretable.
So how many dead bodies have you worked on?
Have I worked?
Yeah, recently.
No.
No. When was the last time you did an autopsy?
The last time I did an autopsy was when I was in medical school.
And that was what, 10 years ago?
Thank you. But no, it was in 1979.
1979. So that was the last time you did an autopsy, right? So you have no experience in forensic pathology.
That's right.
You also reviewed the death certificate that Dr. Odassa prepared, the original death certificate.
Yes, I
Okay.
believe I did.
Okay. You recall that the original death certificate that Dr. Odassa created found that the cause of death was due to cardiac arrest.
Yes,
Okay. You recall that Dr. Odassa, the person who did the autopsy in this case, found the manner of death in his initial report to be undetermined.
yes,
Okay. Now, before you testified here, you actually on direct examination said that you reviewed Dr. Andrews' report.
yes,
Okay. And do you know who Dr. Andrews is?
yes,
Okay. Did you review his testimony prior to testifying here today?
I did not.
Do you know what the manners of death are? I know that you're not a forensic pathologist, but do you know what the manners of death are?
Objection, Judge, we're getting outside the scope of what she testified is her area of expertise. We're talking about forensic pathology, and she's an infectious disease specialist.
Judge,
Even talking about causes of death, she's an infectious disease specialist, and she ruled one out, not determined one.
Overruled, it goes to her knowledge,
Thank you.
testified as to sepsis not causing it, so it's approved.
In this line of questioning, the defense attorney continues asking her questions about things that she had reviewed, and he asked her about whether this is her first time testifying in court.
Do you know what the 5 manners of death are?
I think I have heard them.
Okay.
I'm not an
You
expert
don't know
on them.
them, you don't know them, right?
No, I could come up with most of them, I believe.
Well, I wouldn't want you to do something that you don't know, right? You're not a forensic pathologist, right?
That's true.
You don't work on dead bodies, right?
That's true.
Do you evaluate a lot of autopsies in your pediatric practice?
No, not a lot.
Okay. As a matter of fact, today is and welcome, by the way, today's the first day you're actually testifying in a courtroom.
That's true.
Are you aware that the autopsy report was amended? The death certificate was amended almost 1 year later,
Yes,
okay? And do you recall why it was amended?
no,
You don't. Did you do any forensic examination in court?
no.
Did you review any slides from the autopsy?
I reviewed the slides from the autopsy.
Okay.
So during direct examination, the prosecutor had asked the doctor questions about the video that was provided where you can hear Corey and his mother And so the doctor had made comments about that and what her theory was regarding that. So the defense attorney actually asked her questions about that video. Let's take a look at that.
You also reviewed a 33-second video, am I right?
Yes,
Okay. How many words, by the way, did you see Corey in that video?
no,
So if I'm a pediatric patient, right, and I walk into your office, is one of the things you want to do is look at me?
yes,
You would find that helpful, right?
absolutely.
Now, do you recall how many words Corey said in that 33-second video?
No, I don't recall. It wasn't very many.
Would it surprise you that it was 8?
No,
Were you able to make a medical diagnosis based upon a 33-second video that Corey Michelot allegedly says 8 words and you can't see? Okay.
no,
Now, you said something about the way, and I'm not a doctor, that it indicated to you that there was an acute stress response. I believe you said it released epinephrine,
epinephrine.
right? So, as you sit here now, were you able to determine what that acute stress response was caused by?
Not able to determine, but I have an idea since,
Now, is an idea within a reasonable degree of medical certainty, or is it just an idea?
no, it's with some medical certainty because the description of Corey when he presented was clear that he was extreme or in extremis, and that I have seen many times.
Okay. What does acute mean? Has a particular meaning, I'm assuming.
Uh, in general, it means in a short amount of time, but it's variable for different things.
What is that?
It means that when something happens, acute may be within the last 12 hours, or it's used to describe a medical condition that comes on very suddenly.
But it could come on suddenly 12 hours ago,
It could.
24 hours ago.
It could.
Here, there is another state objection as the defense attorney asked her about her experience conducting CPR.
Pediatric infectious disease specialist, have you ever had occasion to perform CPR on a 6-year-old?
Objection, Your Honor. Did we lay a foundation for emergency medicine with the doctor?
Oh,
She's an
oh.
infectious disease specialist.
Well, she treats children, so the question is, did she ever have occasion to do that? I don't know if we get a foundation for that. It's an open-ended question. It's acceptable to answer that.
I have performed CPR in the past, but I do not recall the ages of the children that I've participated in a resuscitation.
What children ages do you normally treat? Let's do that way.
Really, all ages.
Now, Ms. Strong just made a very, very good point in her objection. How much emergency room treatment do you perform?
I am not infrequently asked to evaluate children, in the emergency department, but that's only after they've already been seen by an emergency room physician.
So do you have emergency room experience?
Only that which occurred during my training.
Which was, do we say 10 years ago?
We could say 10 years ago. I'd be
Okay.
fine with that.
So you have no experience in forensic technology. You have no experience in emergency room, whatever we would call it, care, yes, right?
That's right.
But you have performed CPR on children.
Many years ago, yes.
So when you perform, do you know how to perform? I mean, it's many years ago, maybe you forgot. Do you know how to perform CPR on a child?
It's been many years since I've even certified to do it.
Okay, so you don't remember how to do CPR on a child?
Not specifically.
Okay, so for
I
sure.
couldn't teach it for sure.
But could you do it?
I imagine I could do it, but it doesn't come up in my daily physician service.
So if I was to ask you, doctor, can you explain to this jury how you perform CPR on a child? Would you be able to answer that?
Your Honor, she just said she can't teach it. She doesn't do it.
She said
It's
she
asked
can't
and
teach it.
answered in 3 different forms.
I mean, one additional time would be sufficient.
Say, could you
Ms.
repeat the
Holtz, can you
question?
repeat my question?
Sure.
Thank you.
So if I was to ask you, doctor, to explain to this jury how to perform CPR on a child, would you be able to do that?
No,
Do you know, only if you know, can CPR cause injuries?
yes,
And where do they typically cause that injury?
to the sternum and ribs, chest wall.
But you have no pathology experience. So if I asked you what percentage of autopsies, do you see an injury to the heart and the lung, you wouldn't be able to answer that, right?
Objection, Judge. Counsel just answered his own question within the question.
I'll withdraw, Judge.
So that was some of the direct and cross-examination from this witness. After that, the state does rest their case, and the defense attorney is going to present their case next week. Keep in mind that some of the defense attorney witnesses have already testified throughout the trial because of scheduling issues. So the trial is not anticipated to last much longer. So make sure you stay with us as we cover the rest of this case. As always, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, comments, go ahead and drop them in the comments below, and we will see you next time.